So let's talk about awakening. What do I mean by awakening? Well, I don't mean waking up in the morning after you've been sleeping. And I don't mean waking up to some political realization or some new philosophy. So I don't mean a paradigm shift or a new way of thinking about things. I mean waking up to that which is already always awake. Waking up to reality as it is, unfiltered by mind. So the process of awakening has more to do with seeing through the filters of mind, seeing through the bindings of the intellect, cognition, judgment, and the illusions of separation, the illusions of holding a firm view of reality within the cognitive space, such that the undivided nature of reality eludes you experientially. So it's about seeing through these errors, seeing through these fundamental misperceptions. Now, when we talk about this, we can talk about it philosophically, mechanistically, traditionally. We could talk about Buddhism or Hinduism or certain practices or certain sects of these religions. We could talk about meditation. We could talk about inquiry. And that's getting closer. When we talk about practices, we talk about approaches. That's getting closer than to just talk about it in a philosophical way. Because really, I have no interest in convincing you of anything at all. In fact, if I convince you of anything logically, or if I convince you of anything at the level of belief, then I've failed in what I'm actually doing here. So this isn't about belief. This isn't about understanding. It's not about philosophy. It's not about incorporating what I'm saying or about to say into the way you already see reality or the way you see spirituality or the way you see yourself. It's not about any of those things. Again, practice, meditation, inquiry, mindfulness, these are closer to what I'm actually doing here. But there's even a more direct way. And the more direct way is that I'm going to point to it directly right now. And when I point to it, all I'm suggesting, if you're interested in this, is to look directly into your own experience as it is, without interpreting it. I'll say it again. I'm asking you to look directly into your own experience right now, as it is, without interpreting it. If you're interested in that, then just listen and play along. If you're not interested in that, or if it's scary or confusing, or it doesn't make any sense, or it seems nonsensical to even do this, then turn off the video, because the rest of it is just going to be me pointing to this. So when I say look into your direct experience right now, what I mean is look into that which is the most unprocessed experience, that which is the closest, that requires no processing, requires no interpretation. Now, at first you may not know what that is, or you may not be familiar with what that's pointing to, and that's okay. Because the first stop is usually thoughts. Usually as you're listening to this, you're going to have some thoughts going, does this make sense? I don't know. Do I understand what he's saying? Maybe I do understand it. Oh yeah, it's kind of like this other thing I learned about. Or is he talking about enlightenment? Is he talking about Buddhism? Or is he talking about it in the way I understand it? Is this Dzogchen? Is this Zen? Is this Advaita Vedanta? What category can I put it in, right? All that stuff's going to happen. And it's fine that it's happening. It's not a failure. Doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. That's just the first layer of experience. Notice it feels like you. It feels like your thoughts. It feels like you're the one that's doing that assessment. You're the one that's curious or interested. But I promise you, you're not as interested as you think you are in all those concepts. Those things that feel like interest points for your own mind or something. It seems very intriguing at some level, but if you get deep enough, if you really start pushing through this, you'll realize there's something more interesting going on. Again, as I mentioned before, if you're actually interested in direct experience, then there must be something more interesting going on than just a bunch of thoughts. Because we're already familiar with thoughts. We know the world of thoughts backward and forward. We are bombarded by thoughts all day long, right? So the first step here, the first stop, the first thing you notice often is thoughts. Analytical thoughts. Oh, what's this? What's that? What is he talking about? What's the definition? Or maybe even thoughts about your own response to this. Oh, I don't think I like this. This is uncomfortable. Or, oh, this is great. I really like when I feel this kind of direct experience, whatever, right? So those are closer to your experience. They're a little more experience close, but they're still thoughts and interpretations, right? And it's all fine. Totally fine that that's there. Let me start again and say, stay in your immediate experience. All I'm doing is pointing you to your immediate experience right now. And there is something more immediate than thoughts. Right now, in your experience, there is something more immediate, more uncaused, more unproduced than any thought that may float by, any thought that may catch your attention. Again, at first, this may be obscure. It may kind of spin the mind up like, what is he talking about? Is it this? Is it this? Again, those are thoughts. Notice them, pat them on the head, set them aside, and ask yourself, what is even closer than those thoughts? What is more immediate than those thoughts? What is the most immediate experience for me right now? What is so immediate that I don't even have to think about it? I don't even have to ask these questions. It's that close. It's that immediate, right? So as you ask these questions, if you're able to penetrate that thought layer, that analysis layer, you might sort of find yourself in a different space, not necessarily physically like you've left the room or something, but you might notice the experiential space here feels different. It might start to feel psychedelic. It might feel expansive. You might even have a physiologic response, meaning the body will respond like heart rate increases. There's some kind of fear response or a disorientation experience where you kind of don't know which way's up or down, or something feels like it's dissolving. All of those experiences, all those things can happen here, and that's fine. But they're still not quite the answer. That's not really what we're looking for. Those are kind of like side effects. And if you just stay with this, they will settle. They will calm down. Now, as I've mentioned many times, you may even have a kind of an intense fear. Like, oh my God, this is really scary. I don't know what this is. Like entering the unknown suddenly. And the mind is like, I can't grasp anything here. I can't get my foothold. I'm freaking out, Now, if you're identified with those thoughts, that can be very scary. But if you realize that's just another layer of thought, then that will calm down. Stay with it. That will calm down. And we'll start again. What is the most direct experience for you right now? What is the most immediate experience available to you right now? Just notice it. Notice you don't have to go to it. There's nowhere to go. You don't have to create it because it's uncaused. It's uncreated. If you have to create it, that means you have to think about it first, and you have to think about what you want to create and then do something. There's no doing to this. It's already the case, and it's already in your experience for sure. Right? So notice that. Notice it. Notice it doesn't have any specific quality. Doesn't mean it doesn't have any qualities per se. It just doesn't have a specific quality such that your mind can go, oh, it's this or it's that. Because if your mind does do that, if you say, oh, it's this part of my experience, like it's the expansive part of my experience, then that's sort of filtering out a lot of other things. It's not actually filtering anything, but the mind is suggesting it's filtering other things. So you can see that's still an interpretation. If you start to label even a sort of mystical experience, even an experience that is rather direct, far more than thought, there's still maybe a kind of subtle layer of thought that's still trying to label. Oh, this is whatever. Oh, this is deep, or this is gone, or there's nothing here, or, right? These kinds of thoughts can still pop up even when you're genuinely having a profound experience, a direct experience, an unfiltered experience. So just be aware of those. Set them aside, pat them on the head. It's okay if they're there, but they don't really mean anything specific because they're just momentary arisings of interpretation of thought. So I'll start again. Go right back to the most immediate experience available. Stop there. Notice you didn't go anywhere. You didn't have to go anywhere. It actually feels more like going somewhere when you go into the mind, into some belief about the future or analysis. You're actually pulling back a little bit. Here, there's nowhere to go because it's not only a sort of non-specific experience, a non-defined experience, but it's also a non-distant experience. There is no distance here. There's no apart from. There's no one standing back experiencing. There's just the experience. There's no one standing back from anything such that there's a me having the experience anymore. There's just what's happening. There's just the experience. So that seeming split between the subject or the sense of me and what that me is perceiving, whether it's a thought or what's in the visual field or even the kind of mystical space, whatever, that gap is closed because there's no subject apart from that. There's no me apart from anything. So then the ideas of me and that and this and that and here and there also are seen now to be layers of thought, very subtle layers, perhaps even non-conceptual, experientially, but we can also see through those and see that even those are caused, even those are conditioned. And there's something here that's unconditioned. Unconditioned by mind, unconditioned by time and space, unconditioned by ideas and labels. You don't have to go anywhere for it. I could say something like it's the totality of experience right now. But I don't want anyone to hold on to that idea of totality either. It's simply not filtered. It's simply not conditioned. So this unconditioned living truth that has no words, no parts, no end, no beginning, no center, no edge, neither solid nor formless, really. It's indefinable. The term formless is really just a cure for the illusion of form. But once we've dissolved the illusion concept of form and the non-conceptual overlay that makes it feel like there is form, once that's dissolved, we also don't even have to say formless because that can be its own kind of fixation. So this is unfixated. This is beyond the form and beyond the formless. This is beyond time and beyond timelessness. So we could call this awakeness, natural awakeness, but it's not in opposition to anything. So we don't need to call it awakeness. So it doesn't even have a name. So it's not special. It's not anything, but it's also not nothing. It's not defined by any description, characteristic, position, holding. There are no sides. Really, there's no middle. The last few lines in the Shin Ming says, "For here there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today." Rather like that. Once you recognize it without even thinking about it, without having to label it with a thought, because if the mind says, "Oh, this is it, I got it," still a little bit of thought left. Move beyond that, which means don't move at all, which means don't grab onto any concept, mind, position, anything. Then you can just stay there. Don't try to do anything with this. Don't try to think of how you're going to use this. Don't think of what level it is. Don't think of what it means. Meaning, don't bind into those thoughts. Don't buy into those thoughts. Those are just thoughts. This is before time and space. This is before levels. This is before awake and asleep. This is before form and formlessness. This is before delusion and enlightenment. It has no name.